You guys ready for this?
Should we start the show?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
If you can hear this, it's not too late. I've returned to warn you. This is Time Pop, a podcast that discusses time travel and pop culture. There are spoilers. I've seen the future, and nothing is sacred to these folks. Your past, present, and future are sure to be ruined. Even if you could go back in time, as I have, you will never forget what you are about to hear. You've been warned. This is Time Pop.
Welcome, CHRONONAUTS, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using pop culture as our protagonist. We will be your constants. I am Des.
I'm Ari.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Time Pop.
Talk about how we were going to do that one.
Oh,
Because that
I just
wasn't the
wanted to
future. It wasn't the past. That was about right now.
Oh, that's happening now.
No, it just happened. It's in
what's,
the past.
What's happening now is happening now.
No, it already happened.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we invert ourselves and go back in time so we can do it again?
Oh, can we invert ourselves? Just maybe like 30 seconds and try that again?
You can do it in reverse.
Hop and meet.
But then I don't know how it's going to go the second time. We can whip it back and start it all over again. This is already, I love where this conversation is going because I need to ask so many questions about what's happening. But before we get to the movie, it's been 1 year, give or take. I don't have the exact dates, but we're real close to a year since we have been where we are right now, doing what we are, talking about movies. How are you, Ari? Let's start with Ari. How are you, Ari?
I am okay. It really doesn't feel like it's been a year, but then it also feels like it's been forever since we've done a podcast. I miss you, man. I miss this.
Oh, this is I need this so bad. I am so glad. I've been missing a podcast every day since the last time we recorded, and the fact that I have you guys back here to do it with is just, it means everything to me. So
Yeah, man.
thank you for hanging in there with me through our extraordinarily long hiatus. And Scott Lifton has been with us now and then. He was a longtime favorite from the hit podcast Rotten Popcorn, and then the amazing trio known as Apocalypse Now, but he is officially joining as the third leg of our tripod here on Time Pop. Scott Lifton, how are you?
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be your third leg. That's always wanted to be a third leg. It feels great to be here. Oh my God, I'm so looking forward to it. You know, I've told you about this, Desmond. You're so sad. This is why I need this. I formed a film club with myself over COVID where I watched some obscure film, like either that I wanted to see or from my childhood or something, or that I thought I saw and didn't like once. And then I'll look it up on Wikipedia and have like a thing with myself about like fun facts about it. How sad is that? So now I get to do it with other people.
Oh, it's so great. You are definitely going to be our research guru for this podcast. I'm the bubble head that kind of watches the movie, but then when we talk about it, I realize that I spent all the time looking at my texts. Ari is our science fiction go-to.
Recapper.
She can like actually explain some of these
Yeah,
things.
she's our scientist.
And then Scott is our research, our wiki.
Yeah.
Scott Wiki
Pop
Lifton.
culture buff.
Sounds like a good team.
And so, yeah, exciting to do this. Also, there is not a film that is as worthy of this reuniting as this film.
What film are you talking about, Scott?
I don't know. You tell me.
We watched Tenet.
Yeah.
The Christopher Nolan vehicle starring John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki. Who else is in this wonderful thing? Actually, not as many other people that like
Future Batman.
Oh,
did it?
Michael Caine. Michael Caine. There's a
Caine.
name everyone recognizes.
Robert Pattinson. You got him.
Oh yeah, I got the wolf in. Or no, the vampire. He's not the wolf.
Hey, man.
He's Bruce Wayne now.
He's Bruce Wayne now.
That's right.
In the future, he is.
I don't know how I feel about that.
We'll talk about that on a different podcast.
Okay.
If he time travels, in which case we'll totally talk about it. Oh wait, maybe he will in the new Flash movie. Forget it. Let's keep going.
So much time travel. I was just telling Scott that it's very common now to use time travel in TV and movies. It's become the next level. It's become the next normal to have something with time travel.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to break it down for the audience really quick. That Desmond, Ari, and myself have been time travel enthusiasts for a long time. Before it was cool. At a time, we all worked together, and these were the conversations we'd have in our job long ago. And this was before the world realized that time travel is awesome. And now there's too much.
Time travel is more than a Deus ex machina.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why it gets used so often now is that it's a get out of jail free card. And B, there's no basis for it. There's really no actual basis for it in science.
So you can make up your own rules.
Exactly. Yeah, you can make it whatever you want. And this one, Tenet. So real quick, I'm going to sum up this movie. IMDb. This is it. I'm going to say this sentence, and then we'll have nothing more to add because this covers it perfectly.
Okay.
Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Thank you. Good night.
You did it. You did it.
We did it. That's Tenet. We did it.
God, if the film's that simple, why was it 2.5 hours long?
You know, I asked myself that question a lot this time. I'm just going to jump right in here.
Oh, he's diving in.
I'm diving in. So the first time I saw this movie, one of the things I loved about it so much was what a great movie it was outside of the time travel thing. I was like, this is just a great espionage, globe-trotting movie, regardless of time travel. But this time through, I don't know if all that other stuff was necessary.
How many times did you watch the movie, Desmond?
In the last 3 days, this movie has played. I haven't watched it, but this movie has played from credits to credits 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
But he doesn't fully watch it. It's just in the background.
Yeah.
I did watch it hardcore once, and I watched it so hardcore that I knew I couldn't bite it all at once. And I watched it in 45-minute increments and really gobbled it up. And so because of that, the first 45, I get it. I'm in, no questions. Second 45, starting to get a little gray. The last 45 is still
So,
but yeah, so I mean, I think the non-time travel parts of it really shows you why these people are going to continue to cross paths, whether due to time travel or not. So I think it's good storytelling. But first things first, explain oh, that's right, PG-13. Explain the painting to me. One of you.
The purpose of the painting?
The counter fictitiousness of it, where someone thought it was to where it ended up to how it's still in the antagonist's hands and found on the breakfast plate.
Is that's where you want to start? That's the first thing.
That's how the movie starts. I mean, after the, like, that's like a big part.
It is a big part of the story, but I don't know if that's where it starts, the whole movie. Like the motivation.
That's where things start to get entangled. That's where all of our stars get wrapped up with each other and how they get on the same boat with each other and how he gets invited to dinner with the main bad guy. It's all because of this painting. The reason that this woman is still even with this guy is because of the painting. Like, the reason he can use her to get to him is because of the painting.
Yeah, I have to admit, the first time I saw this movie, the painting aspect of it was a little distracting to me because they made it seem like it was super important, but realistically, it's not. In my opinion, it's just a tool for them to get in touch with the bad guy. What's his name?
Seder.
I know. I'm already forgetting everyone's name.
Well, but here's
real quick. So I don't want to dwell on it too much. But whose is it? Who counterfeited it? Why did he think that she thought that the counterfeit wasn't a counterfeit, that wasn't in play? Like, can you just trace it for me, or is it? Do they purposely make it?
I can trace most of it except for the motivation as to why she sold him a counterfeit.
I think she said she didn't know, correct? She said that she did not know, I believe, in the film.
The original time.
The original time, yeah. I mean, what's important about it, you're right, that part is not important. It is just the end. What is important is that they find out that the paintings are stored in this place where it's like no questions asked. It's like a Swiss bank account for people loading things. And that essentially is how Sator had been getting all of this science and technology from the future to invert time. And that was the whole, and also the gold bricks that kept him. So that was just significant in terms of getting them to that place.
So what you're saying is you can't trace this painting either.
No, she sold him a fake one. They thought that they had gotten it from the place, but they never did.
But why is he holding it over her head? Why doesn't she just say?
Because it was, I know, right? Because it was illegal. Is that why? Like he's holding over her head?
I think the main thing that he's holding over her head is her son.
Right. But she said she used the art to also imprison her and her son.
Because she thinks she got away, and then she lifts up the tray of food to find the painting that she thought had been destroyed. And that's when she realized she's boned again, and she is not.
Is that because if he took her to court on that, like she could go to jail and wouldn't see her kid, or like that he could sue her for something very illegal? That's my best guess.
As long as you're as confused as I am, I'm happy. I'm happy with that.
There's a lot about this movie. There's a lot about this movie that is vague. You know, and watching it again, I've read tons of articles, but it's still there's so much that they definitely don't take the time to explain. When Ari and I first saw this in early COVID at a drive-in, not early COVID, but when drive-ins were open, and we turned to each other.
You saw this in the late 70s?
Yeah. Making out in the backseat. We turned to each other halfway through the film, and I was like, "Do you have any idea what's going on?" She said, "No, me neither." And we just watched it, and you know, I had to do all the research later to realize that like it was a work of genius. But now watching it again, it's very vague. Some things are just not explained well at all. And the sound, there's even articles about that. The sound is kind of muffled and not great.
So that had to be a choice. These are professional movie makers who have multiple titles on their IMDb. They know what they're doing. So the fact that throughout the entire movie consistently the sound is purposely bad, that was a choice. And I have to say, I'm not happy about that choice.
Yeah.
I have not found that to be, well, let's remind the listeners.
It's on in the background for you.
I watch everything with subtitles.
Oh, that's right.
Desmond wins this round, folks. Desmond wins.
So, muffled or not,
like,
I'm always reading along. Yeah,
that's actually a really good idea for this movie.
Yeah, this or Snatch would be good.
And that's a Christopher Nolan thing. I think that he's been exceptionally finger pointed at for burying his sound often, and I've never known it to be a problem in the Dark Knight series or Inception or anything. That's a huge. You know what I do love about it is that I realized on this last watch, I think he's kind of making fun of himself at the very beginning when they're tuning the violins. That's the soundtrack to the Dark Knight. The whole Dark Knight soundtrack is just and Inception is all just one long stringy chord.
It felt like a Chris Nolan film. I wanted like Bane to come out in the beginning of the opera house.
Totally.
Everything is vague in this movie, and like they just say something, and like you're like, wait, he's bungeeing just to talk to someone, and why is he going there? What makes him think he has to go to this person or this tower? They don't over explain anything for you, and they're just like, hey, you're gonna be part of this organization. Nothing is explained. Everything is just like, this is where we're going now. I mean, it is kept, I feel like, a little vague on purpose. You know, we don't know the character's name. It's only mentioned once, even and as the protagonist.
Yeah. So I want to get into Priya, but before we get to that, let's start at the beginning. The opera house. Mostly, I want to talk about after the opera house. So this opera house siege, is it a test?
No, it was real. The after part was the test. It was real. They were trying to get one of the pieces of the algorithm.
And so the test was just...
I think the after part was the test. When he got captured by the mercenaries, that was a test.
Because he got his whole mouth ripped out. And they looked at, like, even though it was apparently not planned, they used it as their recruiting tool that, like, this is our guy. We're going full force.
What's interesting is if you think about it, the protagonist is the one who made the organization in the future. He let this happen to himself.
Oh yeah, he ordered it.
So he tortured him. He
tortured himself.
He let himself be tortured because he could have gone back and not had that happen.
I like that.
So, but he doesn't know. So do you think he knows? So is this movie a pendulum?
It's a closed loop.
Is he?
It's a closed loop. Everything that has happened has always happened, and they have to make sure it keeps happening.
Does that actually have not officially thought about what type of time travel paradox this is?
It has to be a closed loop.
The only reason why I would agree with Scott on this is the very end where what's his name, new Batman says, I have to go back and essentially save you.
Because if this is a closed loop, I feel like at least one point he should have crossed paths with himself.
He
'Cause if
did.
he's constant.
Oh, he absolutely did. The whole
He fought
fight.
he fought
The
himself.
fight
That's right.
scene.
The fight scene.
And also he drove
scene.
past himself getting in a car accident in the car.
Oh yeah.
Look, it is a closed loop, and here's why. The future him founded this organization that is helping him. If it was a straight line, how would he have gotten to that future if this didn't all happen that way? But it always has to have happened this way.
Do we believe the person that we follow through this movie, is this his first time experiencing this?
I mean, it's
Or do you believe they hid his, or do you think he's doing a good job of just like, oh,
Based
he doesn't know. This is the first time he's experiencing it from his consciousness.
But based on the whole idea of the paradox, he has done this all already.
Yeah, loop theory. He has to, because the older him is sending him back to do it to him now. But that's why it has to be a closed loop. It's the only theory for this film.
who gets sent back to reboot it? Is that Batman? Is he getting sent back?
Okay, hang on. We probably shouldn't refer to him as Batman. This is going to be
Robert Pattinson.
very confusing.
Or Neil. The character's
The
name
character's name is Neil, played by Robert.
is Neil. He actually has a name.
We have the protagonist, Neil, cat,
Priya,
passenger,
satyr.
well-dressed man, uniform. Jeez.
Well-dressed man is the guy that he rescues from the opera house. Yes, it's very vague.
So is the main bad guy the passenger?
No, satyr is the main bad guy.
He is not. Is he not
Kenneth Branagh?
credited as such?
Kenneth Branagh? You don't see him there?
That's the actor's name.
Yeah,
He's not on
he's
page
like a
one.
classic Shakespearean dude.
Yeah.
Is he actually Russian or German
No,
or
he's
whatever?
English.
Wow, he did that.
Oh no,
accent.
he's a sick actor.
He did that really well.
he's like top actor.
Like I could tell Robert Pattinson's accent was not great, but that guy, I was like, oh yeah, he's totally a Russian guy or whatever.
Yeah, no, the significance that the protagonist started Tenet is huge. He sent out all the people that are now in the past is because of him. Even Priya, who is like a part of Tenet, and the military that comes back in time to help. That's all because of him. So he founded Tenet, but he had to go through all this to found it. However, the future him had to help it. Henceforth, closed loop.
Which means this is just continuing to happen over and over again.
Who
So
is it? The other guy? Who's the other guy at the end that they split the device into three pieces?
Oh yeah, he's the leader of the military from the future. He works under the protagonist in the future. He sent them back. That whole like military organization is like part of Tenet.
Could he be the rebooter? He was
I don't know
very
what you mean. What
quiet
do you
and
mean by
very knowledgeable.
What do you mean by rebooter?
Who's getting sent back in the past to make sure that this all gets redone again?
I mean, the military was sent back to help out all of the military guys, including Mr. Beardy, and also Neil was sent back.
So this brings me back to my actual original point, because since they don't actually travel back in time, boom, they have to walk it in real time.
Yeah.
Is this a pendulum? Is the protagonist constantly going 10 years into the future, 10 years into the past, 10 years into the future?
I think the other people are. I think he's doing his stuff from the future. It's funny. I'm going to look at this one article. I found this interesting thing. They said this movie is not about time travel. It's about time manipulation. They said rather than jumping forward decades like Back to the Future, the characters are more rewinding or fast forwarding through time, which I thought that was kind of interesting.
that is interesting, but I disagree with the fast forwarding part because all the time has to be experienced in real time. When you invert yourself, you have to wait 10 years, however, a week to go back that amount.
Yeah.
So, which is a phenomenal concept. Like, talk about originality with time travel. That's just genius to me. That aspect I really, really respect about this movie.
It's unique for sure. It's for time travel films. You guys have reviewed a lot. They tend to go in the same areas. This is very different.
You can tell that they tried to make it as, scientifically, quote unquote, plausible as they could. There's still a lot very wrong with it.
So sometimes when you see them in reverse time, they look like they're walking backwards. And sometimes it just looks like they're struggling because everything's reversed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably from whose perspective you're seeing, right? If you're going backwards in time from your perspective, it's relatively normal, but things are a little weird. But everyone else in that time would see you going backwards.
So it's just kind of a perspective.
I think so, yeah.
fade because they mention at one point. Okay,
There's so much to chew on.
so listeners, what do they call the device? They call it what do they call it?
Inverter.
Oh no, you
Do they just call it an inverter?
The machine?
mean the thing
Yeah.
at the end, the algorithm?
No, what they walk like when you walk in one side.
Oh, the styles. The were they the
They called it an inverter, or at least.
no the inversion styles? Look it
So
up.
that machine was pretty prevalent. There was a lot of them.
3. I think we see. So Ari, do you want to explain it to the listener real quick?
Explain the machine.
Yes.
So the concept that I understood from the machine is you step in the machine and, the science of it reverses the entropy of your atoms, the direction of that your atoms, your electrons and neutrons are spinning. So you go backwards in time. You experience time backwards. That's how I understood it. Of course, when they get to the scientific aspect, they have the science lady like breeze through the science terms, which is pretty standard when it comes to time travel movies. They did that quite well.
I was just rewinding it a little bit to see if I could catch some of the terms she used. I have it playing in the background, and because
it's reverse entropy.
Yeah, does she say reverse entropy?
Which
That's
is
right.
not a real thing, right? So there's so many things wrong with that. If it was true, if everything truly was going backwards, the light receptors of your eyes would be shooting out light instead of receiving light. And there's obviously there's a lot wrong with that, but for the sake of the show, of the movie, we have to put that aside.
Yes. Yeah. So as a it makes, I say, a lot of sense. I'm using that when it comes to objects, you can almost make it make sense.
Almost, though, and that's emphasizing almost, because when the science lady was first introducing him to the concept with the bullets, she said you had to be there to drop it, which means he would have had to drop it, but he didn't. He was just there and then he caught it.
Right, the reversing cause and effect, which is what they're saying. But like you have to think about the effect before the cause.
Because when it comes to the people, you always see them go in both directions. But then the bullet, when he picks up the bullet, he was never actually there to drop it.
Well, that's why she said you have to like will yourself to drop it, and it's just going to happen in reverse because it's an inverted bullet. So first there's like the inversion technology, which you could apply to an object, and then there's the inversion styles, which is when they go through one of those rooms and come out the other side going in reverse.
Because what's the glove? They never explain it. What do you guys think the glove? She only handles the objects with a very specific glove.
Yeah, why they had to touch those bullets with the glove, I don't know.
Radiation? They said it had to do with radiation for the.
Well, when she got shot with the bullet, they talked about the reverse radiation. But why just holding the object?
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's radiated, then it's got something on it.
Another thing that I appreciated was they talked about if you came in contact with your past self, you would essentially implode. What
you would, well, I think you would destroy existence also, right? Or is it just destroy yourself? If you actually physically touch your past self, something about occupying the same.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
Yeah, that's why they wore those suits. Remember?
Yeah.
The explanation was like you can't like touch like atoms to atoms, or I think what they were going for is because one has been reversed, so like your electrons are now positive, right? Then they would cancel each other out.
Okay, I was thinking it was just because if you saw yourself, then that would most likely change your actions.
Oh no, they saw themselves.
Oh, yeah, they saw themselves all the time.
Yeah, it was actually about touching molecules, atoms to atoms, that they would essentially equal each other out, and you would probably disappear or something. I wish they would have showed that.
Yeah.
I wish they would have showed someone touching themselves so we could just see it. That would have been cool.
Yeah, during that battle at the end, that would have been a real easy.
Yeah, someone.
Because they definitely showed a lot of other things going wrong with getting walls inverted into your face and stuff like that.
I hate it when that happens. Can we talk about how cool? So again, when we saw this film and I was like, I don't know what this is about. And then I went home and did the research. And the fact that the entire film is like a palindrome is very, very cool. And the fact that that's in like the words that's being used, it's the way that the film is designed. There's all kinds of little hidden secrets and nooks about that.
Give me some examples, because you've said that before and I tried to find them this time. All
right. Well, first off, the word Tenet is a palindrome.
Yes.
And also what's interesting about that is it's 10-10 backwards, which comes up a lot in the film, even when they go 10 minutes forward and 10 minutes backwards. There's all kinds of little hidden nooks like that. The other thing is that when I'm doing the research, there's a thing called a Satyr or Satyr square. If you can allow me to show you this, or you can look it up online, you can see the Satyr square. And the Satyr square is a square of, is it 5 words? And the whole square spells all the words forward and backwards. And they were all used in the film. So Satyr is one of the words. Tenet is one of the words. Arepo is the name of the artist, is one of the words. Opera. And then Rhodos, which was like the security system. So all 5 of these words, go look up Satyr Square right now.
I'm looking at it right now. Holy
And it goes back to like pre-Christian, Jewish, Mithraic origins. It's a very rare 5-word Latin palindrome. And that the fact that this is kind of all at the core of this movie is very cool. And then Tenet goes right through the middle of it. So in Tenet's also 10-10. And then, Tenet is also like this basic core and belief.
5 by 5. It's a, whoa.
So how cool is all that?
It's very
That's
cool.
Rad.
It's also genius, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome that you have that. Here's the thing. Nobody knows about it unless you're like Scott and you went to go look it up.
I need to know.
Really, it's brilliant. It's bloody brilliant. I really commend the writer of the script, but it should have been in the movie. It's that good that somehow it should have been in the story.
I mean, I know Callum talked to us about this. There are some films where they spell things out for you, and some films start off with the character doing their thing, and it's your job to figure it out and piece it together. And just different people like different form of narrative.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people that did not like this movie because it was way too complicated and confusing. People are not that smart.
We don't mean you, fans. Fans, if you're listening to us, obviously very smart. But the other ones?
Let me rephrase that. Smart is not the right word. They don't want to have to work this hard to understand a movie. I still don't understand this movie. And I loved this movie. Okay. I loved this movie and I do not understand it.
Yeah.
Okay. But the fact that you love it shows that he's doing something right. Like, it's nice. This is akin to Inception, which is a little more digestible, but you have to figure some stuff out and you have to buy into he explains like this fantasy, this theory, and you have to like buy into it. And then he explains all the things that work within that system. So Inception and this feel very related to me.
But if you're not a huge time travel nerd like we are, or even just science fiction nerd, you're not going to like this movie.
If you were hoping it was like a James Bond movie, you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is a well done movie. So I bet most of those people, like halfway through, they're like, this is pretty good. And then it just comes unglued and they're like,
I mean, it is still very entertaining. Even if you don't understand a lick of what's going on, it's well done and entertaining, I thought.
I read it took him 5 years to write it. He had thought about it for like 20 years, but it took him 5 years to write this. He talked to like his physicist buddy that helped him work on Interstellar.
He has a physicist buddy. I want a physicist buddy.
Oh yeah.
How do I get a physicist buddy?
There's an app. It's called physicistbuddy.com where you just like physicists get hooked up with like regular people and they talk about physics things and we go, ooh.
Yeah, I want that.
I mean, we're right down the street from Berkeley. You can get a physicist buddy.
Yeah.
Like
maybe
it's a student, but
it's a well-crafted film. I mean, the way he thought of like, and again, the palindrome and the idea of like them starting 10 minutes forward, the others 10 minutes backwards, and like meeting in the middle. The fact that this film, in the context of it, you see action happening halfway through the film. You see it happening like in reverse, him fighting with himself, the car chase, the battle at the end. It's all like, it's like a film palindrome. It's very unique.
So something I that did really kind of, I don't know if it bothered me, but I don't believe he went from the opera to lunch with Michael Caine in 2 weeks.
Was it 2 weeks?
2 weeks, 14 days. He basically died, went into a coma, had his mouth reconstructed. Are we to believe maybe they did that surgery in a turnstile?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it.
Because
you mean healing that well from like having an entirely new teeth set in your mouth?
So the two things that screw with me on the timeline of this is that like this whole movie takes place in like, from what I can tell, like 3 weeks, a month tops, which is bananas. And then also when she talks about seeing the woman jump off the boat, she talks about it like it's ancient history.
But doesn't she say in the movie that it was like 10 days ago? This is a weird thing. I think in the movie she talked about the Vietnam trip like it was 10 days ago. I think. And then but then she's like, oh, we goes back to a time when we were good. And that doesn't make sense that it could be that recent.
Yeah. Again, as long as you guys remain as confused as I am, I'm satisfied with that response.
Most of it I get. There's some things that are still a little weird and a little unclear, but I get it. But I've been researching the PG-13, I've been researching the frack out of it.
Do you know what Cormac came up with on his own? He says hacking.
Hacking?
Oh, like
Yeah, like this is hacking cool. that's his frack.
that's adorable.
His hack. It's yeah, and it also shows.
Let's show this to kids and see if they get it any better than we do.
Dude, Cole and Cormac will probably just see right through the matrix of this movie. Oh yeah, you said we watched it last night. Like it was a family event. Did Zoe watch any of this with
No.
you?
No.
No. Okay.
This would be a lot.
I think, she would probably get bored.
It's so interesting that they keep it so vague. It's so interesting that the character's name is never said and he's only referred to as a protagonist. It's, the film, it feels like a dreamlike state, like Inception. It feels like sort of not real for a lot of it. The way that, and plus the beginning, the way that they decide to get to Priya's house, that they're going to like bungee jump up. They do like these impossible stunts that are just so far out there.
Who's Priya?
Priya's an arms dealer that sold weaponry to Sator. And then I think now she's also a member of Tenet. So
That means he recruited her?
yeah, but she doesn't know, but she does not know, I think, that she's working for him. Like he's so high up there and she is like been dealing with people. She lives in the now. So I don't think she's from the future, but people deal with her or whatever, communicate with her.
Because I get that she's an arms dealer and they're using her arms to manipulate.
Right. But I don't think she realized how that Sator was going to destroy everything. And so that's why she's kind of helping them out.
But at the end, she's trying to clean up the mess.
Right. Yeah. That's, she's not taking direct orders from this guy. He's far in the future. So it's interesting.
So real quick. So the longer version is that in the future, they have developed this technology that inverts time. And so by doing so, they bury these objects that have been inverted. Sator is finding these objects and putting
Desmond just had a breakthrough.
What just happened?
So they're reassembling the pieces of this machine based on where these three protagonists are scattering the pieces.
So the pieces that they're assembling is the algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, we see them disassembling the algorithm to scatter the pieces all over the place, which are then in the future, nay, the past, dug up to reassemble. Again, closing the loop of this movie.
Yeah.
Is that the algorithm that we see disassembled at the end is the same algorithm that they're trying to assemble at the beginning.
The woman who created it felt so bad that she had created this thing that would destroy everything, entropy, that she killed herself and she had them scattered in 9 pieces, I guess, around time, space and time.
My question to that is, if she was that upset to where she's going to kill herself, why didn't she destroy these 9 pieces that had this algorithm in it?
Right.
Can these things be destroyed?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's going backwards in time, won't it just?
It's a piece, but those objects were not necessarily inverted.
Maybe she realized her place in this closed loop and that she couldn't destroy it. Like it destroyed the whole loop of time itself, maybe.
But what's interesting about this is, I just have to point out, time itself is not being reversed. It's objects and people.
Yeah.
So
that's unique.
So while somebody has inverted themselves and decided to go backwards however long, time is still moving forward.
Yes.
Past that point that they inverted themselves, which is really interesting.
They are moving
for
through
now.
Time. Everyone else.
And that's the concern. At this point, they catch it. At this point, let's just come up with a number. 20% of objects on the earth are moving backwards. So, and that's a high number. I know that. But basically, what they're trying to stop is once more objects and people are moving backwards than forwards, that's when the universe gets destroyed.
Yeah, the algorithm would just say it wouldn't be objects. It would be the whole world would be going backwards in time. And they said that would destroy everything.
But like Ari says, like there's enough things moving forward right now that the river is still flowing the proper way. Once they invert enough objects to where the majority of Earth is moving backwards,
So
that's when we pass the point of no return.
Is that what you got from the the danger of the algorithm, because I don't quite remember exactly how it was going to affect the entire universe to destroy everything, right? So the idea was people in the future were upset about the state of their present in the future, and so they wanted to go back and fix things, which is why she created the inversion technology. But then as soon as she did, then the algorithm was, well, that is the algorithm, and she knew that that would then be used to turn everything back. But what is everything? Is it every object, like Desmond just said?
They described it as like the world. So I don't think
But how do you
I don't think it's the universe, although that'd be good. Is it the universe or is it just Earth? But they
how
said
do
it's
you
everything.
how do you physically do that? Because the way this technology works is you put an object or a person inside this machine. Are you going to build a big enough machine to fit around the entire globe?
No, I think that's why it's the way the machine works. Again, we have to buy into a lot of shit for this.
Right, I know. And this is the way that my brain works. I want to figure out, okay, is it like you type this algorithm into a computer and then this burst of energy flies out through the universe?
It's like an explosion, I think, that would change the invert everything.
And then it would change all the atoms. So that's the way it would work, is this burst of energy shot out through the universe that would invert everything, and then we're all just going backwards in time. But if everything's going backwards in time, if time is going backwards, there's nothing to relate it to. Like when you're skydiving and you don't realize you're falling because there's nothing to fly past. If everything is going backwards, then everything is going correctly.
No, but I think she was saying that once you have that mix of energy, that would naturally, like for like a physics thing that's not based on physics, everything would like destroy. Not just that it's going in reverse, it would also, the nature of that,
it would just unravel,
would destroy everything.
Yeah, it would just unravel.
Now there's another part to this, that this is all coming from the fact that they said in the future, it looks like the environmental world has not been good and the world is dying, which is why they're trying to eliminate the past, thinking it might save them. And then they go bring up the grandfather, to change it. And that's why they bring up the whole grandfather kind of paradox, right? And that's why they if they destroy the past humans, will they still exist?
Is that what they said?
Yeah,
they said destroy, or they said just change certain aspects of the past?
No, if they do the algorithm, it destroys the past.
Yeah, if you
It
somehow
destroys the whole, all of the past. But do they still exist because they exist as matter, or do they no longer exist because their past has been erased and they don't know?
I think because at one point they mentioned that the only reason we're still okay is because more objects are moving forward than backwards.
Yeah, they said that the flow of time going forward is stronger against the flow of time going backwards because there's more things still going forward. That's why he wasn't burned to death or froze to death when his car exploded. That was the explanation for that. So yeah, someone in there was concerned that if enough things were sent backwards, then it would change things. But isn't the algorithm what was used to create the original machine anyway?
Scott.
Yeah.
Research guy.
Yeah. I thought they created
Tell me something.
The inversion technology first, and then the algorithm
is separate.
Yes. I was looking up just the definition of entropy because I thought that was interesting. I mean, I always thought the definition was like the utter evolution and eventual destruction of something, almost like a fruit, like a time lapse of a fruit dying over years. I always thought it was like a version of entropy. A body decaying was entropy.
It's a speed.
Right. I'm looking it up now. It says a thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy for conversion into mechanical work, often interpreted as the degree of disorder or randomness in the system. Definition 2, lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder.
Entropy?
Yeah.
Wow, I always imagined as like having to do with like speed and velocity and movement and...
I know, I thought it was always about just like the destruction of something.
Let me just state here that none of us are scientists.
Yeah, well, that's why I just thought I thought that definition would be relevant.
If our physicist friend is out there and wants to join the team, give us a call.
Physicist buddy, be my friend.
Desmond's researching something furiously right now.
Yeah.
I can see it in his face.
Also, can I bring up another theory that Ari and I had that's also on the internet but never confirmed? Is Neil Cat's son?
Bum, bum, bum.
Desmond just had that look. Desmond, Ari and I totally thought it. We saw it, and I looked up on the internet, and there's tons of people that like are buying into this.
He totally is. The way that he says the line at the end where he's like, I've known you for a long time. I'm part of your future, but my story ends here, blah, 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 blah. It's exactly what it is.
I want to, again, I've done the research. I went deep on the internet. There's people that are trying to like find why it's real. They said Max was his name, but Max's full name would be Maximilian. And the end of the Maximilian backwards is Neil. So they're like trying to like use that for it. And there's arguments for and against it. Like they're trying to go by the age. And he says, well, my relationship with you is just starting. Like it's ending, but it's also for me, but it's starting for you, a long friendship. And at the end, you see him with the mom, but he doesn't, the argument against it is that when Neil sees Kat, when he's helping her like medically, he doesn't seem like very affected. And if that was his mom, his younger mom, that would probably be a thing.
Because he knows she survives.
I know, but he's not like,
that's true.
If you're back in the past, like helping your mom out when she was young and all that, I don't know.
Because he knows the importance of not revealing anything.
Anyway, I like to think that that's Neil.
Yeah, this goes, I forgot that I think Neil is the catalyst of the loop, because at the end of the movie,
how can you say the word catalyst for a loop?
He is the recharger of the loop. He is he is the tail going into the snake's mouth.
They need all of it to happen. You need future protagonists,
right? Which means that every time you get to the tail, you got to get back in the mouth.
Yeah, he's essential.
The guy jumping in the mouth.
He saves the protagonist in the opera house. He saves him in the end. Like, he's absolutely essential. But I mean, also like the protagonist is also essential. But yes, Neil saves him 2 or 3 times.
But no, at the end though, he says, I have to go back.
Because he dies. Did you not pick up on that?
What?
Okay. Do you remember in the beginning when he's in the opera house, there's a guy that saves the protagonist?
Yes.
He notices a red rope on the backside, the red string. When they get to that cage underground, there's a dead body there. And then like the body goes in reverse and comes up and like saves them. He took like a bullet and the bullet comes out. And later on, he notices the red string. That's Neil. That's right. So that means when Neil's going back in, he's going back in to make sure he takes the bullet for him. So Neil's about to die. When he says goodbye to him, he's like, I'm about to go. This ends my time with you, but you're about to meet me in the future. And this is just the beginning of our relationship for you. But for him, it's
so he's like
palindrome.
So when we last see him, he's about ready to go into a turnstile to go into the cave and get shot.
Yeah, he's the one who unlocks the gate. Remember, they're like, you're the best lock pick that I know.
That's right. It's so funny. I got that, but then his death happened so fast, and then we see him again.
I mean, if I didn't do all these articles and stuff, I wouldn't even realize. Like, the fact that he's dead there is not really explained. That whole thing with when they at the end when they're at that cage and they can't get through, it's very vague. It's very hard to understand what's going on. Even the beginning is so hard, like what their mission is in the opera house.
Let me ask you this, Scott. If you had not done all this research, no, I'm really curious, but you had, let's say, watched the movie, you watched it twice, right? Let's say you had watched the movie 5 times, but not done any of the research. Do you think you would have picked up on all of these things?
No. Not all of these things.
So
some of them maybe.
My problem with this is it's bloody brilliant. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The creativity, the intelligence, brilliant. But people are missing out on all that brilliance that didn't go research it like Scott did. Write a script that has all this brilliance in it. Reveal the brilliance in the script in some way.
No, people do your work.
No, people don't want to do their work.
Some people want to think. Some people want to put it together. Some don't.
I'm not saying serve it to them on a silver platter. Still make them think, but don't make them have to go and read 7 articles online about it and find out things that you would have never figured out on your own unless you had gone to read those articles. This isn't school.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go old school and I'm going to buy the deluxe DVD version.
Is there?
Do you remember DVDs in the early aughts when they came with 4 discs and 3 documentaries and
does that exist?
I used to buy laser discs, man. Don't talk to me about that. I used to buy Criterion laser discs. I hope there's a director's cut for this that's going to come out. Maybe that will help.
No.
Yeah, let's do it.
It'd be like 7 hours long.
Hey, if Zack Snyder could do a 4-hour Justice League, we could do a 3.5 hour Tenet.
This movie needs to be exactly the same length, except it needs to be done pop-up video style.
Oh, no. Yeah. Did you know that Tenet is a palindrome? And it's 10 backwards and forwards.
What?
So here's my only, if he's going to go this deep, and like I said, the film is a palindrome into a palindrome and a palindrome. I kind of wish that the film was an exact palindrome. Like I already saw this.
Yes.
I would pause it halfway through.
Yes.
If the whole film exactly through the halfway started going reverse for the second half, how cool would that have been? It's almost that.
The fact that he didn't step into a turnstile at the exact 50% mark almost bummed me out.
I did the pausing. It's like the last hour is kind of in reverse, right? It goes into like the car chase and the and a few, but yeah, it's not fully. And then right where he's wrestling with himself at the Oslo airport, like it could have been halfway there and halfway back. I mean, what a mind blank that would have been.
So the final battle, so the troops, the reverse troops, they didn't go through it forward once and then do it again. Like they waited 10 minutes longer to get in the turnstiles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. We have to wrap our head around a lot of stuff. And Ari had a good point, and I read about an article too. When they're in the cars, they're like, well, he's inverted, but the car's not inverted, right? You know? And so there's some things to think about with maybe flaws there, maybe not. I'm still watching the scene where they're in the two rooms and one part is moving backwards in time when he's
the blue and red.
Yeah, the blue and red rooms. And I'm still like trying to just wrap my brain around what is going on time-wise. And it's hard.
I bet you could watch that scene, just that scene over and over again.
Yeah.
And until you understood it.
Yep.
I bet you could just focus on that scene and be like, okay, so if they enter at this point and then they're inverted and they exit at this point, they'll see this as they're going in. I bet you
when
that's
Sator shoots Cat.
Yeah, I bet you that is the perfect like teaching scene.
So yeah, so again for the listeners, as you're going into the turnstile, you want to look through the window and see yourself coming out of the turnstile, and that's how you know
it worked.
That not only did it work, but you should go in. Like if you don't see yourself coming out, then you shouldn't go in, which that never gets addressed for obvious reasons, I guess. If you're going in, you have to come out.
Because in order for that to work, there has to be a delay, and there is a delay. You're in the machine for a little bit of time while it's inverting you.
Desmond, can I give you a fun project to do right now?
Oh no.
Go to Google, look up Tenet timeline.
Oh no.
And look at the images.
No, Desmond's gonna love this. He loves this.
They're created. There's someone tried to do Neil's timeline, which is but then they've created some for all of Tenet, and these are the most complicated. It looks like New York subway system map for one of them.
I'm surprised Desmond hasn't done this already. He loves this stuff.
I know. I'm surprised he hasn't. He's busy.
I was such a good boy, Ari, not having my laptop open while I watched this movie. You would have been very proud of me.
Look at this one.
Oh God.
I'm showing Ari one right now. There's one that's just Neil's timeline, but one shows all of Tenet's timeline and all the characters.
But they use a red and a blue side, which is smart.
How smart is a film where you can make something like, I mean, how well thought out does this film have to be? The fact that it doesn't have more loopholes is really incredible. This is a complicated machine that Nolan has made. Nolan is kind of genius.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Genius.
I forgot about holes, Ari. I've been trying to remember how we used to do this podcast.
The timeline is too complicated for holes as far as the timeline goes. The holes come from the science of it, which are, obvious. But as far as the holes for the plot or the timeline, it's too complicated. I'd have to watch it another 4 times and pause it every 5 minutes to take notes.
It's so far out there that you just have to accept all of it. Like, and that's, again, I'm doing a lot of comparisons with Inception, but Inception's like, you go inside people's dreams. And like, once you accepted that technology and they explain the rules to you, and you have no choice but kind of to roll with it. And this scene feels pretty similar. It's so far off of things. You just got to be like, yeah, that's how it is.
Could you primer this situation? Could you go through the turnstile and just sleep on the other side for 24 hours and then go?
It is kind of like primer as far as having to wait the amount of time before you go back. So I like to think, this is probably not true, but I like to think, and I just had this idea, that this was inspired by 2 things. 1, primer, and 2, that episode of Family Guy where, the dog and the baby reverse time.
Yes.
Except for themselves.
That's right.
But then they start de-aging. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Check. What episode was that?
Did we cover that? We did. I don't know.
We did. We actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, that's our second most listened to episode. Wasn't it, Scott? I sent you that image.
Yes.
Family Guy's like our
It's up
second
there.
or third most listened to episode
So
ever.
so when I watched this for the first time, that's what it made me think of. It was like, oh, time is going backwards, but they were going forwards, but at the same time they were de-aging. So it was an interesting concept.
Does any of these timelines tell you how long it is? Like,
Oh, the number of years? Well, they're
it's not
No.
years, man. I'm telling you,
Because
this movie takes
The
place
movie
in a
itself.
month.
yeah, I know. Yeah. And that's everything. That's why it's such a dream state. Everything is so vague. And the whole thing about the Vietnam trip, I really want to look that up again because I remember saying it was 10 days ago, but like, how can when things were good 10 days ago? Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's weird that
And he got his whole mouth ripped out.
I mean, you know, there's
so those are the holes. Yeah. There's some holes about like some of their little capers about bunging up the building and the fire truck rescue of the object. And yeah.
that's
and-
action movie rules.
Yeah, there's just basic action, but like there's not too many. God, to make a movie like this, it's so easy.
Because you're right, because we see them go back through time. Like most holes are developed because they just instantaneously, but most of the holes in this are filled by watching them go backwards.
So the fight that he has with himself, right? They had to either shoot it twice or the way that they, in a way, you get to see the fight from one perspective in real time and the other person being backwards. How genius is that? How amazing is that?
Mhm.
It's so cool.
It's
Amazing.
incredibly smart. It's incredibly creative.
How did they shoot that or choreograph it or show it to us in a way that one is in real time and the other's back? I don't know. It's great.
And that's one of those things too, where half the time he looks like he's actually going backwards, and half the time it looks like he's fighting reverse entropy.
Yeah.
And it's a really loose plot that he just, I mean, essentially Sator wants to destroy the universe just because he's dying and like,
Okay, hang on. I have to pause you there. I have to say, this is one of my favorite bad guy motivations. Bad guy, right? I just have him in my notes as bad guy.
Sator.
He's twisted, right? There's something not right with him. He has that whole philosophy with his wife that if I can't have you, no one can. And now that he's dying, he's so messed up in the head. He's such a bad guy that if I can't live in this world, no one can. Like, talk about pure evil.
Talk about entitled white guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That too.
God, that is gnarly. Yeah, I forget that makes him consistent. Like, if I can't have you, no one can. If I can't live,
yeah,
no one can.
It's almost like the motivation for like a comic book super villain. It's
yeah.
I love it. I love that stuff. Like
always checking his pulse. That's super like James Bond.
yeah.
Yeah, he's got a device on his wrist where if his pulse gets a certain, then it sets off the algorithm. The part that's weird to me is like, but the algorithm wasn't fully together until the end anyway, right?
It doesn't, his pulse stopping. I don't know why he's so wrapped up in keeping his pulse low. I think maybe, because I think he's got a heart problem. So if he gets way up
but
there.
it meant once he dies, the algorithm goes off, but he didn't have all the pieces together until the end anyway, right?
No, I think he was just a health nut, and that's why he was always checking his pulse.
No, that's considered a thing. That's why they were saying you couldn't kill him. That was the whole thing. You couldn't.
Yeah,
that's why
at the end when he had it all set up,
Right.
it was connected to that device that he was always checking.
But his pulse racing or not racing has nothing really to do.
I think he was just a health nut. I think he was just.
Well, it has to do with the algorithm.
Yeah, at the end he had it set up. He had it linked. So I'm very confused about that aspect. So he gathered all the 9 pieces, 369 for anyone out there who knows what that is, and was going to bury them when he died, and someone was going to find them in a tomb buried, which would then they would implement, which would then end the world. Is that right?
Say that again.
So I mean, this is how I understood it. So he has the 9 pieces and he's going to bury them in a tomb when he dies, right? He dies and the bomb goes off and it buries it in that tomb.
So no one could get to it.
So no one could get to it. But then the concept was that someone was going to then find the algorithm and set it off, which would then destroy the world, because if he can't live in it, no one can.
Oh, I didn't think they would find it. I thought it'd be set. And then once it was set, it was buried so they couldn't mess with it.
So he has already set it off?
Yes.
Oh, I did not pick that up at all. So he's already triggered the algorithm in some way, and he's going to bury it so no one can untrigger it. So, but the fact that they were able to retrieve those pieces and split them up and do something with them, made it so that the world was not going to end.
Correct.
Didn't catch that at all.
And yeah, so there's people from the future that are helping Sator do this. They've been helping him do it since he was like a young boy and discovered it in like a radioactive field. They've been giving him gold pieces to make him rich and powerful and giving him the technology. So he just wants to end the world because he's selfish, and they want him to end it so that maybe it can save the future.
Okay, I have to read this out loud. I'm sorry. I know this is really bad radio, but I keep on trying to like read this in my head, and I just can't.
We're all waiting.
Priya explains that Sator is collecting the artifacts to assemble an algorithm which can catastrophically invert the entropy of Earth. Kat reveals Sator is dying from cancer. They think that Sator is using a dead man switch to send the location of the algorithm into the future. Kat believes Sator will travel back in time to commit suicide during their vacation in Vietnam. The protagonist, Neil, Kat, and Tenet troops travel back in time to that day where Kat poses as her past self to keep Sator alive long enough for Tenet to secure the algorithm. Tenet tracks the algorithm to Sator's hometown, Stalsk 12, where it is heavily guarded. They launch a temporal pincer movement with non-inverted and inverted troops making a simultaneous assault. Sator reveals people in the future want him to find and gather the algorithm pieces in the hopes of reversing the effects of climate change. An inverted soldier wearing a red trinket sacrifices himself to save the protagonist and Ives as they attempt to secure the algorithm. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, Kat kills Sator, hoping the Tenet team is able to secure the algorithm.
That's good.
So
Is Ari right then? Was he just going to bury himself so they get in the future and they set it off, or did he set it off?
well, we don't know what setting it off is. They never explained exactly how the algorithm is going to destroy the world.
Vague.
So I understood it that he was burying it because at one point he says very quickly, as they say all their lines in this movie, is you'll find it in this tomb. You'll be buried in this tomb with it, and they'll find it in the future or something. So I understood it as I'm gonna bury it now, but in the future they're gonna find it. But the origin story of the bad guy was that he was cleaning up his hometown, and he came across one of the boxes, the barrel looking thing, and he found the first piece with gold and instructions in it.
Yeah.
What is that from?
Say that one more time.
What do you mean, what is that from? Oh,
Come on, guys, focus.
It's from the future.
Focus.
No, I'm with you.
So
Yes.
Well, because the reason I got lost is because of the gold. This last time I watched it, I finally realized that the gold they knock out of the plane is the gold that he steals and reverses, and then they beat that one guy to death because you see him during the airplane crash. You see a guy stick a gold bar in his vest, and so Sator decides to beat him to death for that indiscretion.
That's how he's been getting his money from the future.
the gold bars.
The gold bars. That's how he was a poor child. He took a job cleaning through like radioactive or nuclear waste, and then he uncovered that first box.
But
he killed the guy next to him, so he was the only one who knew.
But how did that box get there in the first place?
Yes.
Right. The question is, was he like the lucky one, or did they purposefully, because it's a closed loop and they know the future, that they sent it there?
Does he find it,
or was it sent to him?
And who's they?
The future people that are helping them destroy everything.
What do they think? What does he think? He thinks he's going to bury this for the future. What are they going to do with it?
The world is dying in the future. They're hoping that if they destroy the past, if there's not a grandfather paradox, that they will maybe survive. And if not, they're fucked anyway.
I didn't take it as them.
Oh.
I didn't take it as them destroying the past. I took it as them correcting the past.
No entropy.
They're correcting the future because you're right. Because they talk.
I mean the future.
Because Neil says they're hoping that going back in time and killing your grandfather won't kill you.
They don't know if it's going to work.
But if you kill your grandfather and you don't die, then your grandfather doesn't ruin the ozone layer.
Right.
So you're still alive in the future.
Yep.
But we from the past haven't destroyed.
It's a hope. And it's not.
Yes.
There's no proof for it, but they're hoping. And then if it doesn't work, whatever, they're dying anyway.
I mean, of course, if you go back and kill your grandfather before your father was born, you're not going to exist.
Well,
but why are you there to kill your grandfather? How are you there?
It depends how you look at time. That's what they said. They don't know if that'll work or not. Yes, logically speaking, you are correct. But maybe there's a theory that what you are matter, and once you are there, you don't get it. If it's not just one timeline, maybe you don't get it right.
Because Neil says that at one point the protagonist says, "Well, won't going back in time And he's like, well, like Scott said, they're like, well, either we die because we killed our grandfather, or we die because we have no crops.
So that's if
Either way, we're dead.
Yeah, there must be desperate.
And there's another part. I mean, we have to exist in the closed loop theory for this, but they do bring up in the film once, Neil brings up the idea of like alternate timelines from people's own perspective and stuff. And then that brings up a whole other can of worms.
This, I love you guys so much.
Are you drunk, Desmond?
Yeah, he's drunk.
I am not. I am not. I just this podcast has served its purpose in such a glorious fashion already. To be able, like, whether we're right or wrong, I don't care. You guys have helped it make sense.
So
to me in this timeline, I'm Desmond Alpha. I'm the one that matters. Grandpa lives.
This has been the mushy what's it called in a play?
Please send your emails to timepoppod@gmail.com to tell me why we're wrong. timepoppod@gmail.com.
Yeah, we want to hear all theories about this. If Neil is in fact the son, what evidence you have, or just theories.
Yes. All right, let's get to the real question. Anything?
I have one more thing.
Okay.
So just to clear this up, because I'm a little confused. The future is inverting the barrels full of stuff, burying them so that the barrels are going to the past because they've been inverted.
Yes. Or
you mean the gold?
Remember he in the rubble, he found the box barrel thing?
Yeah.
So it's all inverted.
Yeah.
Because when you invert an object and then bury it, it doesn't stick around and go into the future. It goes into the past buried.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. They've been sending all the technology out here. They've been communicating. They've even set up somehow this whole organization on the other side, the Tenet organization.
And then, so does he have to run that gold through a turnstile to be able to use it?
Wow.
Now?
Probably. That makes sense.
Why though? I mean, an object.
I mean, in theory, you can't carry that gold forward. You can't, if you use that gold to buy something, how does the person you paid?
They drop it. I think you're
keep
right. You'd have to reinvert it.
But when he first found that first box, he didn't have an inverter. So they were just sending the pieces back. So
there was instructions, and eventually they started sending technology.
All the pieces, yeah.
So it's also cool at the very end of that final battle, Neil actually inverts himself 3 different directions in that, because he's originally on the inverted team. Then he goes back through to go on the other, and then he goes back. He reinverts himself 3 times in different directions in that end.
The 3 times or 2 times?
It's 3, right? He's originally on the blue team, so he's inverted. Then he goes through again to go help save
at the 5-minute mark.
And he goes to help save at the 0 mark. He goes to help save the protagonist. And then when he's done, he's got to go back and reinvert to go back in time to sacrifice.
Well, he flips in the middle too.
Yeah.
He flips in the middle.
It's 3 flips. Yeah. It's neat to think you're just flipping your inversion.
So he goes from 10 to 5 to 10.
Or is it 10 to 0 to 10?
Here's the next.
He doesn't go back to. Oh, you're right.
0. He saves him at the 0 moment, right? So
no, that's the 0 to 10, not the 10. So the red team is going. I mean, they're all on a countdown.
But the countdown is the moment that he pulls him out. Oh yeah, he's not inverting himself at that moment. But
right, he's flipped.
Right,
he's gone from blue to red essentially at that point.
Here's my next question: when you're inverted, are you aging backwards? Or are you still aging forward? So if you invert yourself and you wait 5 years, are you 5 years older?
That's a great question. I think you still age, because you're not going back in time in your body. You are experiencing that week and going on.
Because your atoms are still spinning. They're just spinning in reverse.
You're not going back in time. You're traveling through time. That difference that I said earlier. So I think you still age. Yeah.
You're traveling through time backwards. You're experiencing.
But you're not going into your old body.
Hang on. Yeah. I'm working it out. You're experiencing what has already happened backwards, like rewinding a videotape. You're experiencing it backwards. So, but yet you can make new decisions while you're experiencing it backwards.
It's your future. If I say, I was...
Just to use that analogy, to continue with that analogy, when you rewind a cassette tape, you're still putting wear on it.
But Neil was saying Neil has a past with this guy, but it's in the future. You know what I mean? And so that still is You have to think of like your life experience is your past and future. And if your life experience went back in a week, if you're going, that's still you going back in a week next week is your future, even though you're going back in time. So you got to think of your personal timeline. So that's what these timelines that I sent you on Google are good to look at.
Again, think of Primer. Like while they're sleeping in that Primer box, they're definitely aging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to put it, because I think that one is more easily obvious that they're even though their entropy is reversed, their atoms are still experiencing wear and tear.
But if you were truly experiencing what had life backwards, everything would be backwards. You would be reversed. You would be de-aging.
But the world's not going backwards, just you are moving backwards through time.
Right. And because you're moving backwards through time that you haven't experienced.
But you're not, if you're not in your own
You're moving forward. You're moving forward.
Yes, you're moving forward.
Even though the clock, if you grab a clock hand and spin it backwards, you're still doing that in
Reverse.
a forward motion.
In a new forward motion.
Yeah.
Right. And because you can, it's not like if you were going back in your body, that's one thing, but you can exist. Your body is still back there in the past. And now you are going through them. Again, it's not time travel, right? It's time manipulation. It's very interesting. This is, we're going to do more time travel films after this, and we're going to get into the same ideas. There's no film that's like this one.
Yeah. This
is the most to chew on, besides maybe like Interstellar. Primer had a lot. And what's Predestination for sure. But other than that, this one's a doozy.
The one electron. So this is a link I linked on from the Tenet wiki. The one electron universe postulates, proposed by John Wheeler, blah, blah, blah. The hypothesis that all electrons and positrons are actually manifestations of a single entity moving backwards and forwards in time. Why? Because they are all the same electron.
Sorry, I was spacing out. You said positrons and electrons are both.
Well, there's a theory that everything in the universe is made up of a single electron that's repurposed. I don't know what word I'm looking for. The idea is based on the world lines traced out across space-time by every electron, rather than a myriad of electrons. Wheeler suggests that they could all be parts of one single line, like a huge tangled knot, traced out by the one electron.
That all electrons are connected?
Any given moment in time is represented by a slice across space-time and would meet the knotted line a great many times. Each such meeting point represents a real electron at that moment.
Yeah, I understand what they mean by that, by the slice. But it's an interesting way to look at it. Like the slice of time is like if you think of the timeline as a loaf of bread and you slice it just slightly, not straight across to create a straight piece of bread. You slice one of the sides of the bread slightly on an angle. You would end up on a different time. It's essentially saying all time is happening at the same time, is I believe what that theory is talking about, which is Scott's favorite.
As Christopher Nolan stated in the film's press notes, we're not going to make any case for this being scientifically accurate.
No, of course not.
He also, he's a big James Bond fan, so of course this is his version of a Bond film.
That's cool.
So great.
That's cool.
All right, let's get to what matters.
Yeah.
You have a turnstile. Do you use it, and for what purpose?
Do you use it, and for what purpose? Just for morbid curiosity. Just to see what would happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're not going to get like your jollies. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go back, I'm going to party in Woodstock. You're going to experience time opposite. So I just want to walk around, feel everything in reverse, try to ride a bike, listen to sounds, watch, and then go back because that's complicated.
Speaking of getting your jollies, I would definitely have sex while I'm inverted.
Oh my God, inverted sex. Wait, so the climax. Oh, wait a minute. So if the climax was before you begin, it starts with the climax and then works its way back.
For her.
For one of you, right? For her. If you start at the 10-minute mark and the climax is in the 0.
Inverted sex, everybody. This is where we've ended up. Everybody think about it.
PG-13 sex. Just some heavy petting. Some
it'd be reverse. Yeah.
For who?
I don't know. This could be like a very high-end, high-budget porn movie.
Scott, imagine the feeling of it going back up inside you.
No! It's the bullet going back in the gun. Oh no.
Does that mean everything goes back up inside you, like when you pee and when you
Yeah.
go number 2?
Absolutely.
Oh, a reverse deuce.
I'm sorry, Chris Nolan. You make this fantastic film, and now we're reducing it to reverse deuces. But you got to cover all the angles. You got to think about everything.
You got it. All this matters. Yeah.
Your chewed sandwich would fly out of your mouth onto your plate. I'm telling you guys, right now, you both feel a little good because your brains, the synapses are firing, they're churning. The trying to figure out has an enjoyable quality to it. So I'm arguing that a movie like this is craftily made, vague on purpose a little bit, maybe a little too vague, but there's an enjoying factor to trying to fill in the pieces. Is it not? Your brains are a little happy. They're a little.
It started out that way, but now I'm just like exhausted. Like mentally exhausted. I think they definitely somewhere along the lines, someone or many people decided to make this movie vague enough to where they're like, well, maybe the audience will go out and see it and pay to see it 3, 4, 5 times, and we'll just make extra money.
No.
That was I believe, Ari. I think they definitely do that sometimes. Like I mean, this movie was the first experiment of being back in theaters. Like it was this movie that Christopher Nolan's like, this is not like, if we're gonna do this, we're taking it to the theater. Like this movie is made for the big screen. We're gonna do it.
Do you think it would have done better if it was not released during COVID days, or do you think that helped it?
Oh, I think it definitely hurt it, but I think also sitting on it for 2 years would have hurt it too.
Right.
So, you know,
It made
it
was made for what we said, 205 million, but it made like 330 or something. It made an extra,
Which is not that much, right?
not that much, but
Yeah.
I mean,
movies.
it's an extra.
but how much did HBO give them? I mean, to put or whatever, or I guess Apple, whoever put this on their channel
HBO, yeah.
a month after it was released, you know, I'm sure they got a pretty penny for that.
Yeah, that must be part of it because not everyone had access to drive-ins at that time or were willing to go out.
Yeah, it probably
Nobody
definitely
has access to drive-ins.
hurt them.
Yeah.
By the way, I love the drive-ins, everyone. I like to tease about it, but drive-ins are amazing.
But Des, so wait, would you invert? Or you're saying you would invert just for the sex?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. I would, yeah, I mean, I would just have to feel it. I mean, it would just be weird to feel the wind reversing off your skin as opposed to pushing up against a rainstorm.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Riding a bike?
oh, I would definitely go out. And is it just a regular oxygen mask? Like, I don't understand why the oxygen outside of the tank.
Because the air is that you can't like reverse breathe.
So do they have to take the tank with them through the turnstile?
Yeah.
So it's inverted with you?
Yeah.
Is that the deal?
Yeah.
So you'd have to bring
Your food.
but sometimes, I mean, they hung out for like a week in that.
That's why they were hiding in the thing for a while, so they could breathe.
So that whole thing was a turnstile?
They probably brought a lot of oxygen tanks and just filled a room.
Yeah, they were on a, what do you call those? The things you put on trucks, or the little.
But if your lungs are inverted, how is the oxygen you're pumping into that room
It's inverted.
inverted also, unless.
So if you think about the atoms, the molecules of the oxygen has also been inverted.
Okay, that's fine, but did they really take enough with them back? Like if all of that oxygen has to pass through the turnstile.
I think they also tried to sleep for a lot of it.
Oh, you're right.
But you still need oxygen when you
Right.
sleep.
But less.
But yeah, I mean, Desmond, you're making a good point. That could technically also be a scientific hole was, you're there for a week. You need to bring a week's worth of oxygen with you. How do you do that?
You got to bring a week's worth of poop to go back up inside of you.
I mean, food too. You can make the same argument with food, being able to your body to absorb the nutrients of the food.
I have a thought. Wait a minute.
Yeah, you'd have to invert the food.
Yeah, they never eat in the film. At least the inverted
you couldn't chew and swallow forward moving food if it's.
You would have to think about eating the food, and then it would. Wait. So is Neil from the future? And if so, does that mean he inverted back and then reverses direction, but he's staying in the past? Yeah. So Neil is a pro at this. He's been inverting for a long time. So he's probably brought tons of oxygen. I mean, him and that military are super pro at how to do this stuff from the future.
Thank you, Scott. You have just palindromed this whole episode because the first question I asked is where does Neil come from?
Yeah.
So perfect.
Oh, no, you asked about the art.
I did. Well, no, but I was asked. I was trying to figure out who was the rebooter, and if Neil's the one that's going all the way back.
He's not a rebooter. He's just part of the loop.
You're a rebooter. How do we end these, Ari? Do you remember how we had ended? Do we just stop talking and fade out?
No. You usually ask a question about if we would use the technology or not. I think we all agreed that we would, just to see what it was like, and then
To bone.
to bone.
It's always Scott would always go to Woodstock if possible. That's always his first place to go to. And you could make it. I mean, you'd be 90 when you got there, but you could do it. You're cool. You can do it.
That's the thing. If you wanted to travel back many, many years, you would be a lot older. Like if I wanted to go back 20 years, I would be 20 years older.
Scott, imagine watching Jimmy shred in reverse. That'd be pretty hot.
Yeah, I mean, it would make more sense. He has some songs in reverse, so yeah.
That's the point. And then when you got there after 20 years, you would need to have one of the machines to re-invert you so then you can experience it in regular time. So,
there'd be nowhere to re-invert you.
Yeah, you'd have to have a device.
Thank you for listening to Time Pop. We're back. We'll see you soon. I am Desmond McNeese.
I'm Ariel Gala.
And I'm Scott Lipton.
Bye. Is that what you were waiting for?
Yep.
See you in the future, January.
Thank you for listening to Time Pop. Please tune in next time for another exciting time travel adventure with Ari, Scott, and Des. If you have questions or comments or film recommendations, please send us an email at timepoppod@gmail.com. That's timepoppod@gmail.com. If you would like to check out some other podcasts, we have another TV show based podcast where Justin and Des talk about the new hit Amazon show, The Wheel of Time. It is called Thank the Light. Please check that out. We have done our after show summaries, and we will be doing some off-season deep dives. Please get into that and join the conversation at Thank the Light. Are you spiritual? Do you like fart jokes? Check out All the Answers with Katie and Cassidy. You have questions, they have answers. Tune in to All the Answers to give your spirituality humor bone a rub. Need a little more real-world, three-dimensional fix? Check out Truth Not Trends with Liam and Jesse as they talk fitness and nutrition and have great interviews with doctors and authors and other trainers. Jesse and Liam have a combined 35 plus years of strength training to talk about and keep you motivated to be your best self. Also, the Be Brave podcast. Kara and Patty have amazing interviews with awesome women telling their stories about being brave in this crazy world and coming out on top. Listen to these wonderful stories and cheer and grow as we all live through them together. If you have a podcast idea but don't know what to do after you shout into a microphone, go to whatsoundsawesome.com. That is whatsoundsawesome.com. And that's where you can find We Mixed It LLC and connect with me, and I will help you get your show from your microphone to everyone's ears. Have a great week. See you next time. Welcome, Chrononauts, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using pop culture as our... I had it.
Wait, let's do it. Take two. You sound like you're peaking. You sound like you're blasting out your speakers.
Yeah.
Like raspy or something.
Sexy.
That's the word you're looking for. Yeah. Sexy.
All right, we're doing take two.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.